Meeting of the Planning Application Committee. I'm Councillor Gerard Hargreaves and I'm Vice Chair of the committee and I will be chairing tonight's meeting. So welcome to you all. This meeting is being live streamed, so people will be listening to it from outside the chamber. Just to introduce a panel here, on my right I have my fellow councillors who will be listening to the applications and determining the outcomes of those applications and asking questions for clarification. To my left, I have planning officers who are here to present the cases and to support us by answering technical questions. We have planning officers, we have a legal planning officer, and we have governance officers down in the main chamber to take minutes of the meeting. So you're all welcome. We do have a lot of applications tonight with speakers. So I would ask the speakers, please, to stick to their time allocation, and I will be quite strict in asking you to wound up when you get to the time. And also, if you are asked questions by members, to be brief, but obviously your opportunity to answer the questions, but be brief in answering them, then we can get through all the applications, please. Thank you. I have a couple of bits of administration to do before we get into the actual applications. Are we any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chairman. There are none this evening.
Good. Do we have any declaration of interest from members? Any other declarations? Thank you very much. So we now come to the applications themselves, and what I plan to do is to take the applications with speakers first. So once you've had your application, if you're a speaker, you may choose to stay and listen to the rest of the evening, or you may wish to go after your particular application has been heard. So just to help you get your mind in the right position, the order will be, we will start with Pembroke Road, then move on to Park House on Lone Square, Upserne Road, Kensington Square, Burnsall Street, Abbotsbury Road, Smith Terrace, Berkeley Gardens, Fawcett Street, land at the rear of King's Road, Portobello Road, and we're on to now the application, no speakers, Seymour Walk, Westbourne Grove, Camden Grove, and the Little Boltons. So that's the order that we will go through. So we start with our first application tonight, which is the store at 37 Pembroke Road. Who is going to present this to us, please?
Thank you, Chair. That's myself. There we go. Perfect. Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. The application site for the store at 37 Pembroke Road seeks permission for a centralised roof extension to the existing store building. The extension is designed to facilitate the relocation of the council salt store to the Pembroke Road site from Lotts Road, and will also provide ancillary storage for the council. The application is a council-owned submission. So the application site is outlined in red here. You can see the store building, which is located to the east of Pembroke Road, and the service yard sits to the left-hand side of that red line. The building is surrounded by residential properties to the south, east and north, and these comprise properties along West Cromwell Road, Cromwell Crescent and Huntsmore House, which sits to the north of the site there and is accessed along Pembroke Road. So this is an aerial image of the existing store as it's situated by the existing surrounding properties. The building has limited views in the wider area, except for some perforated views from along Pembroke Road and Warwick Road, where the entrance and exit to the site are located. This is a three-dimensional image of the proposed extension to the building. You can see here that the front elevation of the building will retain a staggered parapet, and the centralised roof extension will be set in from the sides and rear of the building, and the flat of the roof will be subject to a green roof. So these are some photographs taken along Pembroke Road. You can see the store building situated right at the back of this photograph here in the central photo, slightly more clearly along the access route here, which is the entrance to the Pembroke Road service yard. And these are some photos of the front elevation of the existing building, which currently comprises storage for the council. And you can see on the photograph on your right-hand side the relationship between that building and Huntsmore House. So this is the proposed front elevation of the building. You can see that it will be raised up and a central entrance will be provided to allow gritters to access the salt. Then either side you will see two openings which will be subject to perforated shutters which will allow access to the storage for the council separately. You can see in the foreground there those properties along Cromwell Crescent, and then to the right-hand side of the screen you can see the properties along West Cromwell Road, and then you can see Huntsmore House on the left-hand side. This is the proposed side elevation of the building. Again, here you can see the set-in from the rear of the elevation, and just flanking the building as it currently sits is 35A Pembroke Road, which is also a residential property. This is a roof plan of the proposed extension, so you can see the set-ins from the residential properties either side and the setback from the rear elevation and the green roof that will be subject to the flat of the roof. And then here you can see a section of the site which demonstrates the rear elevation, and you can see outlined in white 35A Pembroke Road. This is a section which illustrates the gritter lorries within the building and the salt store, and then the section of the two side areas of storage. The salt store will be contained separately from these ancillary storage spaces. And then finally, this is the proposed floor plan. You'll see again the salt will be stored centrally within the building and will be contained from the other storage which surrounds the rest of the salt store. Thank you very much for your time. The recommendation is set out in the committee papers, and I would draw members' attention to the addendum report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, we do have some speakers on this. The objectors, Mr. Rawlinson and Mr. Gruel, or Dr. Gruel, you have 3 minutes between you. Where are you? You have 3 minutes between you, and when you're ready, please.
Good evening, thank you very much. I'm a resident of Huntsmore House, and until the summer of 2023, I was the chairman of the property management company. And I'm speaking here this evening on behalf of myself and 26 other residents who have confirmed to me their objection to the application. We object to the application to alter the existing store structure on the site for the following reasons. This site is not suitable. It's very interesting with the application that no mention has been made to the surrounding areas and the traffic in the vicinity. The operation of the salt store will bring in a concentrated increase of heavy traffic. When salt spreaders are required to work, they will be comings and going into the evening and overnight in a densely populated residential area. Pembroke Road already gets congested with cars, buses and heavy goods vehicles, so the increased congestion and associated impact on emissions and air quality is only to get worse. There will be a significant impact on the scale of the store and the visual appearance affecting residents to the south of Huntsmore House. The salt stored will also have a detrimental corrosive effect on the fabric of surrounding properties, especially metal elements. The local area is in the process of massive residential development. Warwick Road has already been had a lot of building. The Tesco site is starting, and the Earls Court Exhibition Centre will continue this work. The application is totally misaligned with the future makeup of this area of the borough, and I suggest it must be rejected. Finally, I'm worried that the councillors will place your role for the council above your duty to the local electorate and residents that you are elected to serve. Please don't let us down.
Dr. Gruel.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Planning Committee, in just 60 seconds I must emphasise a critical oversight in the proposed planning that directly impacts my household's well-being. I'm so glad that you finally acknowledged that the salt store is at 37 and not 35A, my house, as it has been in the last 2 planning cycles. The current proposal neglects to acknowledge the shared wall posing significant structural concern for my property and neighbouring homes. Furthermore, the proposed constructional noise implications threaten my ability to work from home effectively and disrupt my children's study environment during crucial exams this summer and next. The oversight not only jeopardises our safety and productivity, but also undermines the principles of fair consideration in urban development. Every homeowner deserves equitable treatment, ensuring their ability to live, work without undue disruption. Ignoring these essential aspects disregards our fundamental rights and the integrity of the planning process. I urge the committee to reconsider the proposals with these concerns in mind, prioritising the safety...
I'm going to have to bring you to a close now, please. Last sentence.
Thank you for your attention in this urgent matter.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Now turn to the agent for the applicant, Ms. Tanya Kozak.
Good evening, Chairman and members. My name is Tanya from Union 4, the planning consultants on behalf of the applicant, the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea Social Investment and Property Team. This planning application is for a proposed extension to the central section of the roof of the Council's existing storage building at the Pembroke Road Depot. The building will be used for the storage of road salt, which is currently housed in temporary accommodation elsewhere in the borough. The salt will only be used during adverse weather events when the roads require gritting in icy or snowy conditions. For most of the year, the building will simply be used for storage with limited activity on the site. The building cannot currently accommodate the vehicles required for the collection and delivery of salt, resulting in the need to extend the central section upwards. The perimeter areas of the roof will remain at their current height. The new roof form will be similar to the existing, comprising a shallow pitch clad in corrugated metal. A green roof is proposed around the flat perimeter area, which will help to enhance its overall appearance and create opportunities for biodiversity. The proposals will allow for removal of the temporary salt store, which is located on a strategic site that is allocated for residential extra care housing and employment use. The surrounding context has been carefully considered to ensure that existing levels of amenity are maintained. The height of the building will remain well below its taller residential neighbours to the north, south, and east. Overall, the increase in height is considered to have a limited impact on the outlook and amenity of surrounding neighbours and is appropriate within an urban location. The application is supported by a suite of specialist reports which confirm the proposals are suitable in terms of daylight and sunlight, highway safety and congestion, air quality, noise, construction impacts, ecology, and contamination. The site will generally only be operational during the winter months and only during isolated periods of adverse weather. We hope that the enclosed nature of the proposals and infrequent nature of the activities will also help to alleviate some of the concerns regarding these matters. To conclude, the planning application accords with local, regional, and national policies and will facilitate important strategic development elsewhere in the borough. We would respectfully ask you to support the recommendation of your officer and grant planning permission for this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now have an opportunity for the councillors on the panel to ask questions of the speakers. So who would like to start with a question, please? Any questions for the speakers? Okay, we then have an opportunity to ask questions of the officers to clarify any of the points in the report. Who would like to ask a question of the officers? Councillor North.
Yes, thank you. I'm particularly looking at the greening aspect of this on the roof. Could you give us more detail on how that's going to be? Is it going to be an irrigated greening system? What maintenance will be involved? What access will need be?
Thank you. So in terms of the details to the application, we've been informed that it will be a green roof and we've got some sectioning detailing of that sedum roof. However, because we want to make sure that it's managed and maintained properly, we have recommended that members apply a condition to any grant of permission to secure details of management and installation. You can find that condition in the officer's report. That would be condition 4, and that is prior to the commencement of the relevant part of the works condition. So that will secure those details for us to review, make sure they're appropriate.
Thank you.
Could you just go back to the picture? I just want to look at the height in relation to neighbouring buildings, please. Just confirm that it's lower than the neighbouring buildings.
So on this slide you can see the front elevation and the parapet would be the highest point of the building. And then I'll just take you to the side elevation, the side profile, so you can see that it sits below those properties along West Cromwell Road. So the building will be contained and will only be subject to those limited views from Pembroke Road and Warwick Road. I think the overall height to ridgeline increase is around 3.3 metres approximately.
Thank you. Any more questions from the committee? Okay, in that case then we need to come and make a decision, and you will see at para 1.5 it is recommended that the committee grants planning commission permission with the conditions listed in section 9 of this report. Would all those in favour of granting please raise their hands? Anybody against? Please raise their hand. Any abstentions? Councillor Paxter. So that is, Councillor Paxter was abstaining. That is granted. Thank you very much. We now move on to the second item, which is Park House, Onslow Square. Who is going to present that, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'll be taking you through this one. Before members this evening is a full Section 73 application that is retrospective, so the works have already been implemented and completed, and the application site relates to Park House, Onslow Square. So this is a site location plan, so you can see that the property is situated on the kind of backland development behind the terrace of houses on Pelham Street and on, apologies, 2 seconds. So the properties to the north on Pelham Street, and to the east and south-east by properties on Pelham Place and Pelham Crescent respectively, and to the south and west by properties on Onslow Square. There's some site photographs showing the scheme as completed. And this is the approved roof plan from the 2019 permission. So this is the extant permission that was granted for the site. This is the approved roof plan from the 2021 permission. And this is the roof plan as built. So you can see that there's changes in the placement of the roof lights. There's changes in relation to the ridge height and the eaves height. There's the retention of additional doors and variation to window details, and there's other matters such as the omission of a chimney, the reconfiguration of porches and drain pipes, etc., and other alterations. So again, the roof plan is built, so you can see those additional roof lights. This is the southwest elevation, so this is the 2019 permission again, the 2021 approved, and the elevations is built. So you can see in green the kind of omission of the chimney, and then the variation in the windows, the porch, and the ridge height. That's the final slide. So again, this is a retrospective application, which is recommended for approval. The aspects that have been built, there are aspects that have been built that deviate from the approved drawings, and they are considered to be mainly relatively minor changes to the scale, position or design. Given the location of the building and the fact that it is a standalone property, the development preserves the character and appearance of the Thurlow and Smith Charity Conservation Area, and there would be no significant impact to the living conditions of neighbouring occupants. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And we have speakers on this application. So, Louise Hubar, you have 3 minutes as the objector, please. Thank you.
Is this working? Great. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I'm the Vice Chair for the Pelham Residents Association, and I'm own a house directly adjoining Park House, where there's been a multi-year development of 5 or 6 years. And the current house bears no relationship to the original planning permission granted, which was PP 1805784. There have been so many planning breaches: 21 windows without planning permission, 9 doors, a retractable roof. The list is endless, and actually there's a total lack of adequate supervision, I feel, by the council. My beef with this particular application is the Velux windows. We were shown 5 Velux windows on the right-hand side, having been granted permission. Actually, those is where there are 9 dormers, but hey-ho. My problem is with the other side of the building, where there are 10 Velux windows at the moment, and in particular the 6 smaller ones. I really do feel that nightlife is to be enjoyed insofar as that it should be dark. There's an enormous amount of light pollution. I sent in a photo. I don't know whether you can see the objection photo. Would that be in your pack over there? That's a typical night. It's just immense. And that retractable roof, which was put in without planning permission but then approved, is never open. It's just an additional living space. Anyway, my issue is glazing. This is supposed to be a secondary building. It's not supposed to be, I can't even think of a word to describe it, with so many windows. I really do feel that there was a mention made that my living conditions aren't impacted, but actually they are. I can't look out at the night sky. All I look out is a floodlit house. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Could I now ask Keith Chichester, the agent for the applicant? Sir, you have 3 minutes. Thank you. Turn on, sir, please. Thank you.
Beg your pardon.
And speak into it. Thanks.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm Keith Chichester. I'm the Director of C2J Planners, and I represent the applicant. During the construction of the dwelling, some minor changes were made to the building's detailing, which did not accord with the original approval issued in 2019. Work on site is now complete, with the approved landscaping fully implemented and integrated with the established mature tree cover. Such is the success of the landscaping works, views of Park House are now very limited from within the site and from properties immediately bounding the site. The application before members today seeks consent for a series of relatively minor changes to the height, position and design of details and the introduction of 2 additional door openings. Your professional officer's evaluation recognises that Park House, which is not subject to any statutory designation, is a standalone building that has no contemporaries in design terms for buildings to harmonise with in terms of details. Your professional officers acknowledge the majority of the amendments are located in discrete locations and taken on their merits are all reasonable alterations that have no impact on the surrounding context or on the living conditions of local residents. Having carefully considered the submitted proposals and the objections raised by only 3 of 143 nearby owners and occupiers notified directly by the Council of this application, your professional officer's report concludes that given the location of the building and the fact that it is a standalone property, the development preserves the character and appearance of the Thurlow and Smith Charity Conservation Area without impact on the living conditions of neighbouring occupants. Accordingly, the proposals as a whole are considered to accord with adopted and emerging local plan policies of this Council. Regarding the representations made by the single objector, as your officers have confirmed, comments on matters not forming part of this application are not material considerations to the determination of this application and should be disregarded when considering the application. Concerns raised by the objector relating specifically to this application, where relevant, are not shared by the majority of local residents. In conclusion, I would respectfully ask members to support the professional officer's recommendation to grant additional planning permission on satisfactory completion of an undertaking and agreement as set out in the officer's report. I would like, if I may, because I have a moment or two left, just to address 2 factual matters that the objector made. Firstly, Enclosed glazed structure has the benefit of planning consent, and consideration was at that time given to the impact of that in terms of light pollution, and it was accepted that no such pollution would occur. Equally, the suggestion there are 21 additional windows and 9 additional doors is wholly and factually incorrect. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. We now have an opportunity for members to ask questions of the speakers. Who would like to ask a question? Any questions for clarification? Could I just ask a question of the applicant, please? We often get retrospective applications coming before us and they contain 1 or 2 issues. This has got 20. Why is there so many amendments to the original application or changes to the original application? 20 is a lot.
There are 20, you're correct, Chairman, but if you look at them in relative terms, they are very small scale. They are things like minor detailing of the walling. None of them are significant in terms of the impact on the surrounding area. The majority of these changes are on the southwestern elevation, which is the access drive, which is away from Pelham Place. It's away from the listed properties further down Pelham Place and on Pelham Crescent. So its impact is very minor. And inevitably, since the inception of this proposal, nearly 5 years ago, the client's aspirations do change marginally, and there are construction and other issues that occur during that period which necessitate some minor changes. And it's not uncommon on something of this scale.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the panel? Chance to ask questions of officers. Who would like to ask a question of officers, please? Any clarification needed? Could you please, just for my benefit, the issue about lights, could you just clarify the increase in the number of lights and the impact they might have, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So the increase would be the 6 new roof lights and alterations and variations to the windows. Officers have considered this as part of their assessment of the scheme and have concluded that there wouldn't be significant impacts to the living conditions of neighbouring properties given the distance and separations from them. I hope that answers your question.
But we did hear from the objector that it is already quite excessive, and to increase it, you're happy that the increase and the changes is not going to be detrimental?
Officers are content that they wouldn't be detrimental to the living conditions of neighbouring properties.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the officers? Okay, we then need to come to make a decision on that, and you will see in para 1.2, it is recommended the committee authorise the Director of Planning and Place to grant permission on satisfactory completion of an undertaking, or to refuse planning permission if an undertaking or agreement to secure the condition section 7 has not been satisfactorily completed. Those in favour of that recommendation, please raise their hands. Anybody against? Any abstentions? That is granted unanimously. Thank you very much indeed. We now move to item number 3 on the agenda, which is Upserne Road. Who's going to present that for us, please?
Thank you, Chair. That would be me. Before members this evening is an application at 36 and 36A Upserne Road, and this is for the construction of a 3-storey rear extension with ground floor, rear terrace and privacy screen. On the slide here is the site location plan, so you can see it relates to the end of terrace property that also backs on, well, sides on to the park adjacent. This is an aerial view of the site outlined in red. These are the existing floor plans for the property. So you can see the lower ground floor and ground floor plan, and then first and second floor plans. This is the existing side, rear and front elevations, and then also a section through the building. And these are the proposed plans. So the application site is already split into 2 separate flats or dwellings. So the colours denote where the 2 separate flats relate to. And then you can see that at lower ground floor, the intention is to infill the majority with a small patio and light well. Then there is a slightly set-in ground floor extension, and then the first floor extension is further set-in. And then this is the proposed front, rear and side elevations. You can see how the rear extension kind of steps in, and then the majority of the bulk is actually at lower ground floor level, which is kind of concealed from view. And then there's some photos of the application site. The view from the park looking to the side of the property. Oh, and that's it. So the officer's recommendation is to approve planning permission. There wouldn't be detrimental impact to the conservation area, and neighbouring living conditions would be maintained. It's also worth noting that a similar application was refused due to the lack of details to demonstrate the proposed development would have no adverse increase in flood risk to the site, and the current application has addressed those issues. The application is to approve. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Again, we have speakers on this, and I would like to invite Richard Jacques, who's representing the objectors to this application. So you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Firstly, many thanks to the committee for considering this application, which might otherwise have been decided by officers. As the representative of the Lots Road Neighbourhood Forum and of local residents, we believe this case raises many critical issues that you need to consider this evening, but most of these boil down to the simple question whether the Lots Road Conservation Area appraisal is worth the paper it is written on. In the recommendation from officers, your attention is drawn at paragraph 6.4 to 3 essential aspects of the appraisal. These are that rear elevations of terrace buildings are an important feature of the original design of historic terraces, and as such make a positive contribution to the area's character, historic significance and appearance. That the view towards the property from Westfield Park is an important public view of rear elevations and gardens. And finally, that oversized rear extensions would be one of the negative elements that should be resisted. In quoting so extensively from the appraisal, officers clearly wish to give the impression, as they state in their issues and balancing section of their recommendation, that considerable importance and weight has been attached to these issues, and that the proposed development would, in their words, preserve the existing character and appearance of the Lots Village Conservation Area. Yet the facts of the proposed development do not concur with the officer's bold assertions, namely that the proposed 3-storey extension has a width more than 50% of the original building, would infill virtually all of the lower ground floor, resulting in the loss of a garden not seen elsewhere and setting a dangerous environmentally harmful precedent, would create or extend a room on the side elevation at every level, and is situated next to the sidewall with Westfield Park and would be highly visible. Moreover, officers in their report have neglected to inform you of a further key consideration from the Conservation Area appraisal. Here I am quoting section 3.34 that states the most important feature of rear elevations is uniformity throughout the terrace. From even a cursory examination of either the site plan or the side elevations, and I'm grateful that the officers put those pictures up for you, the proposed extension represents a significant alteration to the profile of the existing terrace in both form and scale, and in particular to its near neighbours. This alteration to the historic profile will be visible both to the surrounding properties and from the public amenity of Westfield Park. While we are familiar with the arguments that these issues are a matter of judgment, the substantial difference in the size and profile of the proposed extension is not a matter of judgment, but a matter of fact. You should also be aware that the officers have wrongly assessed the impact of noise, obstruction and building nuisance for the adjoining properties, including the residents of number 38 Upzone Road, who are with me this evening, and whose property was not inspected by officers for damage to local living conditions.
You're going to need to bring you to a close.
Despite officers' assertion of no harm. One more sentence, if I may, in conclusion. I would urge you both to consider the facts of the case and to use your judgment and discretion to overturn the recommendation. In doing so, you will restore our faith in a factual and common sense reading of the appraisal, and you will create clear guidance for both officers
Long sentence, sir.
and developers for the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We don't have a speaker for the applicant, so any questions from the committee? Councillor Svendick.
Thank you. Well, question to the objector then. I'm just reading officers' response to concerns around harm to the conservation area, and they've written that there is an example of existing three-storey rear extension along this terrace group, and that there are examples of existing lower ground floor rear extensions. Interested to know your response to that, and if there is an example of a sort of single three-storey rear extension, is that an exception, or is that characteristic to the? Do you think that the existence
Firstly,
of one
they are
exception is enough to
Wait for the
claim
question,
that it
please.
doesn't do any harm to the conservation area, just because there might be one exception?
They are wrong as a matter of fact. There is only a two-storey. No one in the terrace has entirely enclosed their garden to any degree. And so these, to the extent that there are, in two areas, there are some protrusions from the terrace. They are historic. They were before the conservation appraisal, which the councillors encouraged the neighbourhood to put in place. And the things that have been raised by officers predate that and do not add to the historic nature of the terrace. And in the immediate vicinity of the property in question, there are no such extensions, and this would be a major disruption to the uniformity of the terrace.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Yes, interested in your response to comments made by officers around the loss of garden space and the loss of a palm tree. Obviously, I know a palm tree isn't native and might not be a loss of biodiversity, but obviously, nature and green spaces hold more value than just biodiversity. So can you speak to the importance of green spaces and the general feeling of having a sense of green space and nature in Lots Road area?
Certainly, and I accept that a palm tree itself it cannot be the subject of a preservation order or planning control. But as a group of residents and as a neighbourhood forum, we would be extremely concerned to see these garden terraces being infilled in this way, not only for the environmental consequences of such loss of green space and green lungs within our area, but also because although they may have satisfied officers about the flood application, if we set these precedents and we see these gardens being impacted, we will be building up for ourselves a major problem in an area like Lots Road, the Lots Road Conservation Area, in the future.
Thank you. Councillor North.
Yes, I'm just looking at the list of recommended conditions attached to this, which is quite extensive, as well as the informatives, such as the non-use of the roof terrace, privacy of secured glazing. Do any of these conditions attached make this more palatable for you?
Not particularly, and I, having spoken to the near neighbours, there is a concern that firstly these become unenforceable, the not use of the or become very difficult to enforce for the council to enforce a condition like not using roof terraces, and where there is permission to use one of the terraces with a privacy screen, of course that doesn't stop the neighbours from having a significant noise pollution impact, even if they may not be able to see what's going on behind the screen.
Any more questions? Can we now then move... Councillor Thax, did you not? Can we then move to questions of the officers, please? Who would like to ask a question of the officers?
Thank you. I'm reading the report carefully and looking at the drawings in the pack and on the screen. It's hard to see whether this is large or not. It seems quite modest. Could officers just give me an idea, for example, on the above ground floor levels, like first floor, whatever, the actual square meters of extension being built? So I'm just trying to assess the impact. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm just bringing up the plans, so I think they might be helpful to understand. So you can see on the plans here that the bulk of the extension into the garden is at lower ground floor levels. This will be set beneath the kind of prevailing, or not prevailing, but the kind of common ground level along the terrace. So that will be hidden somewhat from view, especially from the side elevation. So I don't have specific measurements, so I'm just trying to read off of this plan. So it looks like the, if we look at ground floor level, that looks to be about 4 meters in depth, maybe 5 meters. So that isn't so significant as to kind of cause that much of an impact, and that it is set in from the side, so that will alleviate kind of like the sense of enclosure or impact that the neighbouring property at 38 might experience. And then the kind of area denoted as a dressing space above that at first floor level looks to be quite modest in scale. I would say no more than kind of 2 to 3 meters in depth. But I don't have the accurate plans to measure from right now for you.
Could you just go back to the slide? It was a photograph of showing the buildings behind this. That one. So this I think is quite a chunky extension, quite a chunky development, and it is very close to the buildings behind. Can we just clarify this 3-story versus 2-story? This is an unusual development, and it is 3 stories. This will be different than anything else along that row, and because it's at the end against Westfield Park, it will show there. It's not going to get lost in the middle of the terrace. So I wonder if you could just comment on the size of it versus the rest of any other extensions in there, and the impact behind on the properties behind, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm wondering if the aerial view might be more of an assistance here. Not particularly. So officers have kind of considered this in the round, and there are examples of other rear extensions along the terrace. I think 42 has quite a sizable. It looks to be up to the eaves, which is where this particular extension would also be. I'm not sure if they benefit from the lower ground floor, so I can't tell you if it's 2 or 3 stories, but it does go to that kind of same height, albeit kind of maybe less in depth. And the property at number 52, which is kind of the bookend of the terrace, also has this kind of stepped rear extension. So I think officers were kind of looking at it more in the round. But I do take your point that it probably is going to be somewhat of an encouragement. I don't know if that's the right word, but it will be viewable from that part of the park, albeit retaining kind of a significant enough gap. It's just stopped now, but
Can you go back or not?
Yes.
I mean, okay, there's 2 issues. There's the gap between the 2 properties, which will reduce considerably, and they are very narrow. Then there is the site from Westfield Park that will be an extension to that blank wall, that blank white wall that we see there. So from both those angles, this will stand out as quite a significant extension.
I think that is correct. It will be viewable within public vantage points, but the gap will be maintained. That extension is not going to go to the full width of the garden. As I said, the majority of the depth of the extension is going to be below this level because it's at lower ground floor level, so you'll only see that kind of ground floor and first floor, which are slightly stepped back in from this view.
Okay, fine, I can see that, and I've got a plan here. Councillor Rednick, did you want to... And then Councillor North.
Following on from that, just looking at the conservation area appraisal that states that oversized rear extensions would be one of the negative elements that should be resisted. Obviously, these are modest-sized terraces. It has a village-like feel. So what would be considered an oversized rear extension? Given this seems to be quite significant.
Yeah, so that's difficult for officers to make a decision on kind of without an application being in front of them, and I wouldn't want to set parameters here that are outside of anything that's in policy. So I don't think I'm able to kind of answer that question hypothetically.
I understand. It just seems to me that I don't know what would be an oversized rear extension if in such a sort of small space. I mean, this to me seems quite significant, but point taken that you can't assess it.
I think to me it's the positioning of it in this area. An extension of this size in another area might not be oversized or might be depending on the site location, isn't it really? Councillor North.
Just to follow up on my question to the objector, I'm just looking at the details of the informatives and most importantly the conditions. Can you allay our fears that there are any problems with enforcement if any of these were breached? I can't think of any to hand, because if it was noise and nuisance, we have a format for that. If it was the actual building materials used, we have a format for that. It would be very easy to prove if the roof terrace is being used. By a simple photograph would prove it. So is there any of these conditions that you think would be unenforceable or even difficult to enforce?
Thank you. No, so for officers to append conditions to planning applications, one of the parameters of that is that it has to be enforceable. So we wouldn't have suggested any conditions to members that wouldn't be enforceable.
Any more questions? Okay, then we need to come and make a decision on this. You'll see at para 1.2, it is recommended the committee grant planning permission with the conditions listed in section 9 of this report. All those in favour of granting, please raise your hands. All those against, please raise your hands. That is granted then 3-2. Thank you. We then move to item number 4, Kensington Square. Who's going to present this, please?
That's me. Thank you, Chairman. Firstly, I'd like to draw members' attention to the addendum report. There's an updated map in there because the one in your pack was incorrect. That's been corrected thanks to a neighbour pointing that out to us. And we've also received an additional representation letter that's included in full. So this is the application site. So the blue line is within the applicant's demise, but the actual small red line you can see on that plan just identifies where the wall is being proposed behind 34 Kensington Square. There's 2 aerial images I have for you to just try and give you the orientation. So the wall is at the back where there's that large tree. And then this is another angle looking back onto the site. Again, you can identify it with that large tree. So this is a plan that was approved as part of the previous application. So all the history is in the report pack for you, but it identifies that a new wall has already been approved in that location up to a height of 2 metres. And again, in the same location as identified here, a new wall is proposed to be put back at 2.5 metres high. This is an elevation drawing, just showing you that, the height in relation to it. And then a sort of longer elevation to identify that. Officers are recommending approval subject to conditions, and matters such as the tree have been taken into account. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Again, we have speakers on this, so I would like to ask Rehan Suna, who's representing the objectors, to speak, please. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you also accepting. Is it better now? Thank you. Thank you also reading my submission yesterday. I'm having a problem in seeing this request in the context of Section 73 because of the subject matter defined by the planning officer. Because under Section 73, you only can refer to conditions and you leave the operative grant alone. While in this situation, the operative grant has been clearly stated, and it's substantially different how it was presented, because it's not a freestanding wall like shown, but it is a 2-meter high retaining flank wall sitting on terra firma. And the additional privacy is as in the situation before, which I knew closely, is provided by a modest trellis. So it is substantially different, and it's also well defined. So this is not a request suitable to be considered under Section 73. And this is based on what I read in NPPG. They say the same thing. There is substantial persuasive case law. And additionally, there is no benefit to it. I mean, I don't, it imposes so much onto the adjacent property, and also there are design problems that clash with the requirements of the design access area, which is the plan is gone. 34 Kensington Square is part of the main cluster of houses on the west terrace of the square. So the design needs to hark to the standards set by those gardens, by their listed walls, all of which sit on terra firma. They all obey the common law rules. The highest ones are the party walls, and they're 2 meter 30 only. And all the garden pieces with heightened levels are looked after by flank malls, and one of them is in my own garden. And this style is referred by the inspector as well. So there is a serious misunderstanding.
I need you to bring your comments to a close, please.
Okay.
Last sentence.
Is it better now?
No, I need you to bring your comments to a close. You've had your time, so last sentence.
Sorry. I'll stop right away.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We then have Mr. Delaney from the applicant, please. So you have 3 minutes, starting now.
Yeah, my name is Nick Delaney. I represent the applicant. The application is submitted at the request of and with the support of the owner of number 34, whose end garden wall it will be. Whilst the comments of the objector are noted, the proposal has been very carefully considered. As the officer said, there's already approval for a wall of 2 metres in height. This proposal is simply for an extra 50 centimetres. Whilst this is important to the owner of 34 for security reasons, the increase will have a negligible impact in heritage terms and also on the amenity of number 32, not least because it'll be perpendicular to that boundary. And even more so in the context that there's permission for a 2.5 metre security trellis immediately behind. So on that basis, we ask that the application be approved.
Thank you very much. Committee, any questions of the speakers, please? Thank you. Any questions of the officers? Could you just clarify what's already been granted and then what is here? Because my understanding is this is only a small amendment to what is actually already agreed and in place.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So I note the discussion around Section 73 applications. This isn't an amendment in that sense. It's not a variation of the condition. So it's not a Section 73. This is a standalone planning and listed building application. They've got permission. So it is sort of an amendment to a previous permission, and that's why they've described it as such in their development description. But it is a standalone application, and it's changing a 2-metre high wall to a 2.5-metre high wall. So same in terms of its size, materiality, it's just the height that's changing.
The bit on the trellising, could you just clarify that?
There was trellising approved on the other side to a very similar height under a condition. So there are other boundary treatments around different parts of the site that do reach up to 2.5 metres. So in our opinion, it wouldn't look out of keeping as similar trellising has been approved.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee? Okay, so we then need to take a vote. We've got 2 votes on this, one for the planning and one for the listed building. So can we do the first one on the recommended to grant planning permission with the conditions listed in section 9 of this report? Those in favour, please raise their hands. Anybody against? That is carried unanimously. We then move to the listed building consent, and it's recommended that the committee grant listed building consent for the reasons set out in section 2. Would all those in favour please raise their hands? Any against? Any abstentions? That is granted as well. Thank you very much indeed. Can we now move to item number 5, 27 Burnstall Street, please? Who's going to present this, Jess? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. That will be me. So before members this evening is a planning application for the construction of a single-storey basement below the footprint of the existing house and part of the front and rear gardens, including the creation of light wells, new roof light, and removal of 1 solar panel at the main roof level. So this is a site location plan of the proposed site outlined in red. You can see it's a mid-terrace / end of terrace property on Burnstall Street. This is an aerial view of the property, so you can see the solar panels on top of the roof there. This is an existing lower ground floor with the demolition aspects of the proposal shown in red. The existing roof plan with the removal of the 1 solar panel in red. And the existing front elevation with the kind of wall removed so you can see the entire front elevation, and then the existing front elevation with the wall in situ. This is the existing rear elevation and the existing section. This is the lower ground floor as proposed. The existing, the ground floor, sorry, as proposed. The roof plan as proposed, so there's a new roof light where the solar panel was. And this is the proposed front elevation, so you can see the kind of element on the left-hand side of the screen is below ground, hence why it's not connected. And then this is the proposed rear elevation. And this is the proposed section where you can see the kind of extent of the basement area. So useful for members to note. So the floor to ceiling height of the part of the basement which extends to the front is 2.2 metres with a build-up and then 1 metre of soil. And then the internal floor to ceiling height at its max is 3.4 metres. So officers have considered the application, and the proposed development would preserve the character and appearance of the building and the Chelsea conservation area, and the proposed basement would be in general conformity with the relevant policies. The proposal would also continue to ensure good living conditions for occupiers of neighbouring properties, would have no adverse impact to existing trees, landscaping features, public highway, flood risk, drainage, or result in any land contamination on site, subject to the recommended conditions. This application is recommended for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, we have some speakers on this. So for the objectors, we have Hayley Richardson and Jeremy Marsden, who... Great. Are you both going to speak?
Yes, I'll go first.
Okay, you've got 3 minutes between you. Thank you very much.
Do my best. Thank you, Chairman. This part of Burnsall Street is a narrow cul-de-sac where 7 neighbours have objected to this application. Major house refurbishments have already been approved by the council at numbers 33 and 36, which are concurrent with this development. And it is also the service delivery route for the Builders Arms pub, including daily refuge and recycling lorries. My house, 1 Astle Street, is opposite number 27 and shares a party wall with 36. The 3 developments are about 25 metres apart from each other in a triangular pattern. I and many of my neighbours work from home, and we believe that adding this one to the other 2 will in effect result in a perfect storm of disruption. Nearby, residents of St Luke Street experience similar noise issues with concurrent developments at numbers 14 and 16. The noise, especially the large basement dig, is bound to reverberate around the cul-de-sac and therefore amplify. It is also likely to take place during the summer months, thus depriving us of the opportunity to open windows during the day. Furthermore, we ask the committee to scrutinise the submitted CTMP in particular, as we believe it to be inadequate in the circumstances. This was reviewed by the Transport Department before the application for number 36 was submitted and approved by the Council, and now needs to be reconsidered in the context of the existing approved developments and how this will impact neighbours in such a small, confined area. In conclusion, the objectors sincerely request that the committee either refuse consent on the grounds that the development will unreasonably affect the quality of lives and mental well-being of neighbouring families, as well as our ability to carry out our own employment, and if not that, defer a decision on the application until the CTMP has been enhanced and agreed by the Transport Development, and then finally, if approval is granted, mitigate the inevitable disruption with very specific conditions on both the mandatory use of acoustic barriers and also the wrapping of the building to prevent dust. So I'll just pass to Hayley. Thank you.
Hi, I'd like to add about the tree. We have a TPO on the magnolia, which is in the Garden of 27, but majority of it hangs over to the Garden of 25. There is significant amounts of work that would have to be done if they want to minimise any damage to the tree. This is a major concern. It's in the conservation area, and it is a big part of that street. Again, as Jeremy said, the amount of traffic and building lorries as well as refuse lorries is going to be immense for such a small amount of space, having 3 developments at one time. I'd like to consider that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. So we now have an opportunity for the applicant, Josh Gledhill, who's going to speak on behalf of the... Oh, is the applicant. So you have 3 minutes.
I'd like to start by saying anyone buying 27... Yes? A bit closer. Okay, okay. There we go. Okay. My name's Josh Gledhill. My wife Juliana and I are the co-directors of PVG Design, which is a property development business behind Burnsall Street 27. We would argue that anyone buying 27 Burnsall Street would have embarked on a similar planning application. There are basement extensions all over this part of Chelsea. Just on Burnsall Street alone, across a 20-year period, there have been basements granted at number 1, 3, 5, 8, 9, 10, 12, 25, which is the objector's house next door to us, 33 and 37. Regarding the objections, the planning officer's report is quite emphatic. The proposed basement would comply with policies CL1, L2, L3, L5, L6, L7, L9, L11, CE2, CE5, C7, CR6, and CT1 of the local plan 2019. And objections have been taken into consideration, and where required, conditions have been issued to address concerns raised. In addition, council consultees, including officers for trees and traffic, key objection areas, have raised no objections to the plans provided. I just want to raise a couple of specific points from the neighbours. The first is, we have been engaging with them in private. We've had phone calls, emails. We met in the local pub to hear their concerns. And we made certain offers during that process, including adding acoustic barriers and wrapping the site. And we've also offered specific additional quiet times to suit reasonable requests. Sorry, this microphone is up and down, isn't it? And we, even if they're not conditions, we are very happy to uphold those, and I've said that throughout. The second point I'd like to make is about the CTMP. I mean, clearly this is a draft CTMP. I haven't seen the latest plans for number 36, but we're well aware of number 33, and we will address number 36's plans when we submit a final CTMP if we're offered that opportunity. And then as to this magnolia tree, we have explored the roots of the magnolia further with an arborist. Their latest report confirms there are no roots of significance along the front basement footprint. So the arborist is not proposing any pruning of the magnolia. We love the tree and recognise it's a big feature for the street and the house. Thanks for your consideration.
Thank you. We now have an opportunity for the committee to ask questions of the speakers. Any questions, please? Councillor Mackover.
Just looking at the section of the basement plan, where there seem to be parts in two heights. What's the floor-to-ceiling height in the main section of basement?
3.4 metres.
And what's the floor-to-ceiling height in the section of basement underneath the garden?
2.2 metres.
Say again?
2.2 metres.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor North?
Yes, I'm going to ask the same question to both. To the objector first, I heard what you said about acoustic wrapping and protection and dust collection. Has the comments made by the applicant reassured you? If not, why not?
With the best will in the world, is a property developer, and therefore I think it's incumbent upon the council to specify and not to have a third party undertake. I think if he's willing to offer acoustic protection, it needs to be a condition of the approval and not something that could be reneged upon by him at a future point.
So then can I ask the applicant, would you be willing to have this added as a condition?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions of the speakers? We get questions from the officers, please. North?
Can I just follow up on that? Can we add that as a condition to make the objectors happy and we have the consent of the applicant?
Yes, so we do have a kind of standard dust mitigation noise, not noise. I think Lisa can confirm.
There's already a recommended condition for the Code of Construction Practice.
Okay.
That does sit outside planning, so when those details come in, they are assessed by the construction management team. So there's two options. You can bolster that by adding in a requirement that those details should include acoustic screening or shielding or whatever, however you want to word it, or you can add an informative to supplement that condition that does the same. I think, to be fair, for it to have more clout, you would add it to the wording of the condition. An informative is just an informative.
Okay, could I propose that, Mr. Chair?
You can indeed, yes.
And I've just got one other minor
We need
question.
to second that and carry it.
Okay.
Who would like to second that? Councillor Bennett, yes. All those in favour of that being added as, just to clarify what we're adding it as, please. Lisa. Just wanted to make sure we get it legally correct.
So at the moment it's recommended condition 6, which relates to the Code of Construction Practice. So that deals primarily with ensuring that how the site is managed and conducted safeguards living conditions. So it's separate to the construction traffic management plan that looks at different things. So that would make more sense. Alternatively, you can have it as a separate condition, but you are, I guess, encouraged to reduce the number of conditions you apply and try not to duplicate. So I would suggest that where you've got the currently worded condition number 6, after you've got parts A and B, that you put in, just before it says the development shall be carried out, that the checklist and plan shall include provision for acoustic screening or shielding, whatever it is you want to secure as part of that plan, then I would add that wording in.
Yes, please.
Could you just confirm what it is?
Is it acoustic and a wraparound? What are you wanting?
Both.
Okay.
Acoustic screening and the wraparound for the dust. Yep.
And you're happy for it to go in as part of 6 Code of Construction Practice?
Yes.
As outlined?
Yes, please.
So, proposed by Councillor Norwood, seconded by Councillor Whitting. All those in favour, please raise their hands, please. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Okay, that is carried.
Just one other question.
Yep.
If I can just ask, I see in the objections here, and as has been raised in the chamber this evening, about the trees, and I notice we have got a condition number 15, which seems to me to go the extra mile with regard to no tree lopping, no tree toppled, no tree felled, no root pruning. That pretty much is belt and braces that covers those objections, would you agree? There's nothing else we can add to that, is there, to give assurance?
There is a TPO on the tree. It's been enforced.
Thanks. So the arboricultural officer has reviewed this application and they've suggested that condition. So I wouldn't think there's anything more that we could add to that at this time.
Just to follow up with that, Councillor North, if I may through you, Chairman, is as the tree is protected, it's protected by way of its order anyway. So that is a bit of a belts and braces, but in any event, any works to that tree requires separate consent.
Thank you, that's very reassuring.
Just to confirm, the objections obviously raised this bit about multiple disruption from the various developments that are happening. This has to be looked at alone in its own context, and there is no real issue around concurrent development that we need to reflect or could be reflected in this.
That's correct. So each application is judged on its own merits, but what I would say is that there is a condition for a final CTMP to be submitted and approved to the local authority, so that would need to pick up any other developments that are happening at the same time in terms of kind of that construction management piece.
Any other questions? In which case then we need to come to a vote. Paragraph 1.2. It is recommended that the committee grant planning commission with the permission with the conditions listed in section 9 of this report, plus the additional what we've added to condition number 6, the Code of Construction Practice. So all those in favour of granting permission, please raise their hands. Anybody against? No. Anybody abstaining? No. That is granted unanimously. Thank you very much. Can we then now move, please, to... So the applicant, your microphone is still on. Can you just pop it off? Great, thank you. Thanks. Can we move to 81 Abbotsbury Road, please? And who is going to present this to us? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So planning permission at 81 Abbotsbury Road is now sought for a single-storey basement at the property, extending less than 50% of both the front and rear gardens. Revisions have been received during the course of this application to remove various extensions that were proposed in the beginning. So you will see some of the objections did reference that originally, but it's now relating solely to the basement, which has roof lights shown at the rear, which you can see in this image below. This just shows the proposed layout at basement level, and again those 3 roof lights in the rear garden. Importantly, there is an area proposed under this part of the site, as there is kind of an L-shaped projection, which is why it's important to consider the 2 front and rear gardens separately in terms of the 50% described by CL7. Turning to the section drawings, you can see the existing and then the proposed, with the step down to the rear garden to accommodate 1 metre of topsoil. And here is an image, just an aerial image, showing you the rear garden and where those 3 roof lights would be set. Officers are recommending approval subject to a number of conditions, and that concludes my presentation. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. And we do have speakers on this one again. So could I ask the objector, Stefan Zehal, to speak? You have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you. I'm number 77 Abbotsbury Road. With regards to the report by the Director Planning, heading 7.3, it says the submitted CMS not only acknowledges the presence of the existing sewer, but it also shows the applicants have intention to liaise and so on. And then goes on to say, this therefore demonstrates the applicants would be able to develop the property in a manner that there would be no any meaningful disruption or harm to existing local sewage infrastructure. The issue here is that the development proposes to have a public sewer running through a habitable basement. Now, looking at the CMS, heading 6.1, it states there is an existing shared Thames water sewer. It's not a shared sewer, it's actually a public sewer. That's what it's defined at by Thames Water. And goes on to say the design will be in accordance with Thames Water requirements. But there isn't actually a design, it's simply a statement that a design that will be in accordance will be provided. So the CMS nor any other document do not show a design, and hence neither Thames Water nor the Council saw a design. This is acknowledged in the CMS by the use of the future tense. Since the design does not exist, it cannot be accepted that the design will be in accordance with Thames Water requirements. Because the applicant has not produced a design, he has not demonstrated anything, and specifically has not demonstrated that the proposal described above is viable. The development proposes a fanciful and extraordinary idea of having a public sewer running through a habitable room. Thames Water surely will never agree to such a development, and this development, if there is a failure, would in fact render number 75, 77 and 79 uninhabitable. The normal solution would be to divert the sewer around it. So given the serious nature of potentially rendering 3 buildings uninhabitable, this deserves particular attention. At the very least, the committee should include a condition: no development shall take place before the written consent of Thames Water to the sewer proposal has been provided to the Council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd now like to call upon Andrew Dewhurst, the agent, to speak on behalf of the applicant. Thank you. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. The reason this has come before you, I think, is because the scheme was a much larger scheme with extensions at first floor level, and the basement was originally intended to be much larger. And we've listened to the objections, and the applicants withdrawn earlier applications to bring the scheme down to a size that we think is acceptable. and it's traditional basement construction, so it will be relatively straightforward. But just dealing with the sewer issue, it is quite common for sewers to run underneath buildings. It's not unusual. And this development won't, even if you grant consent, the applicant won't be allowed to build over the sewer unless they get Thames Water approval. So that the two don't need to be conditional side by side, but if we get planning consent to do it, but no consent from Thames Water, then the applicant won't be able to build. We haven't yet made the application to Thames Water because we wanted to be confident that the applicant would receive planning consent before going through the process of applying for the build over licence. Thank you.
Thank you. Chance now to ask questions of the speakers. Would anybody like to ask a question? Anything you want clarifying? Councillor North. Thank you.
Just a quick question to the objector. Are you satisfied with the response about the sewer which you raised objection to from the agent?
No, I'm not. Again, the reference to building over a sewer, public sewer, was made. It has already been built over. This is an extraordinary change that the public sewer would in fact end up running through the basement itself, and so it's building around the sewer, if you will, not above and below.
But this would be subject to approval by Thames Water before the work could be completed and signed off.
Well, I would be happy if that condition was added.
I'll ask the officers, but I'm not sure if it is a condition that we can tell Thames Water to give permission to this. But I will ask the officers. I'm just saying the reassurance given to you by the agent for the applicant is that there is a separate agreement that has to be signed off by Thames Water.
Well, this may or may not take place, but if the development starts and then once excavation has started was found not to be viable, this would cause a great deal of problem. And given the severity,
that would be a problem for the applicant to pay if there was a problem there, because he couldn't go ahead unless he got that permission from Thames Water. Okay, my question was just simply, are you assured by that you're not?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on that? Okay, questions to the officers, please. Who's got any questions to the officers? Councillor North, let's see what your question is.
Can you add anything to the sewer mystery for us, please, for reassurance?
Thank you for your question. We did actually consult Thames Water on the proposals, and back in November 2023 we did receive an email saying they had no comments to make at this time. That was all that it said, so there was no request for conditions or informatives. I mean, there is a separate process as sort of landowners that the applicant would need to go through, and there have been instances in the borough where we've granted planning permission for things that can't happen because there's other things that come into play after the event. But I don't think there's any reasonable condition we could attach specifically to that, particularly given Thames Water have raised no comment or objection.
So, just to clarify, so everybody is absolutely clear, before any building work takes place, starts, Thames Water would have to give permission or would have to approve the sewer arrangements?
I'm not sure of the exact process because it sits outside of planning, but I know, Lisa, you may want to pick up on that. Yeah, I'll leave it to you.
Only because I'm building an extension, so I know. But yes, there is a process to be followed. The timing is not set, so it's generally done through building control. As you know, applicants don't have to use the council's building control, they can go to an approved inspector, but at some point along the line there will need to be detailed structural drawings that would need to highlight any sewer pipes or drainage issues or any foul water or anything like that, and that will all need to be addressed before they can go ahead and build, and that's for the applicant.
Any other questions? In that case, then, we need to go to a vote on this. Para 1.2. It is recommended the committee grant planning permission with the conditions listed in section 8 of this report. All those in favour of granting, please raise their hand. Anybody against, please raise their hand. Any abstentions? That is granted. John, are you okay on that? Yeah. Thank you. We then come now to 1 Smith Street, who is going to present that for us, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, that would be me. So, application before members for planning permission for the demolition and rebuilding of an outrigger extension, which will be reinstated to the exact dimensions of the demolished outrigger, and materials used will match. So the application site relates to 1 Smith Street, which is an end of terrace but is enclosed by the Chelsea Synagogue to the right-hand side. So the application site previously benefited from quite substantial rear outrigger extensions at ground and first floor. So the site has a slightly complex planning history where permission was granted in 2020 for basement development, and as part of the instatement of that permission, the rear outrigger and rear of the building unfortunately collapsed. So this application is to kind of rationalise that and to ensure that the development is carried out in accordance with the plans and for the substantial demolition that has occurred. So these are some photos of the site in its current state where you can see that kind of demolition that's has taken place. And these are the pre-existing plans prior to it collapsing. And then these are the proposed plans, which are in line with the consented scheme that is still extant on the site. And these are the demolition plans. These are the pre-existing elevations and the proposed elevations. And then this shows just the demolition that has occurred. So officers are recommending approval of the permission subject to the conditions outlined in the officers' report. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And we have 2 speakers on this, 2 speakers objecting to it, Annabel Loris and Jan Rowland. You have 3 minutes between you. Are you going to both speak, or?
I'll probably do the speaking to start with.
Okay. Could whoever's not speaking turn your microphone off?
I beg your pardon.
3 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening. I live next door to the development and Annabelle lives at number 5. Just a correction, it's Smith Terrace, not Smith Street. There have been 6 previous applications made in the last 5 years to get the demolished outrigger rebuilt wider and higher. All attempts to date were either rejected by the committee or withdrawn. We are here to ask the committee for clarity on the current application, which in principle we do not object to, subject to the conditions we're going to request. We are going to ask you for 2 things and hope you're in a position to grant them. The first is in relation to what is meant by the exact size of the original outrigger. The developers in this application say they want to rebuild the outrigger exactly as per the demolished original outrigger, which is fine, but there is nothing exact about the application. There are no clear measurements pertaining to the original, and the drawing submitted seems to differ between the pre-existing demolition elevation and the proposed section drawing. They show the proposed outrigger to be different heights. The demolition elevation, shaded red, is the correct height as per the original. The other one is much higher. Given the developers' previous attempts to have a much larger outrigger and their history of doing as they wish and seeking retrospective planning permission, it's not beyond the realms of possibility for the outrigger to be enlarged and then retrospective planning permission sought if clarity is not given now. So we ask the committee to please make it clear that the demolition elevation is the correct drawing if the council so minded to grant the rebuilding of the outrigger. The second request is regarding the use of the roof of the outrigger as a roof terrace. As the planning officer said in the report, the developers are not explicitly seeking permission for a roof terrace in this application, But in every previous application for a roof terrace or railings, all which were refused or withdrawn, they have perpetuated a myth on their plans that there is an existing roof terrace, and they do so yet again in the plans before you. There is a real concern amongst the neighbours that the height of the outrigger will be increased during the rebuild to be in line with the back door, allowing access onto the roof and thus gaining a roof terrace by default. Furthermore, if they're not intending to use it as a roof terrace, why are they retaining a door leading onto the roof of the outrigger without railings around the outrigger or across the back of the door? Surely this is a health and safety issue. The door in question never received formal consent, but exists as the previous owners removed a window, put the door in, intending to apply for planning permission for roof terrace. Their pre-planning advice was it would not be granted due to privacy issues, so it went no further. But the door remains. The privacy concern also remains, as a roof terrace here would be an absolute invasion of privacy, giving the developer an elevated 180-degree view into the houses of Smith Street.
I'm going to ask you to come to a conclusion, please.
St Leonard's Terrace, Tedworth Square, and all along Smith Terrace.
Thank you. We have nobody representing the applicant, so any questions for the speaker, please? Any questions for officers, please? Councillor North.
I'd like to pick up on exactly what the objector said, if you could turn your microphone off as well. I'm looking through the details. Is there anything the officers can point out that would reassure the objector on that particular point of the terrace and the lack of railings, etc.?
May I just say, I don't believe they presented the piece that actually shows in their intended...
I can't really, you've had your chance to speak, I have to stick to the format.
Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon.
Do you want to turn your microphone off, please? Thank you very much, thank you. The finish of your question? Yes. Okay.
Sorry, so just to clarify your questions in regard to the proposed plans not showing roof railings, so the inability to use the roof as a terrace?
Yes, I mean, it could be said that the door was there and it could be done for maintenance, but what I'm saying is, can we allay the fears of the objectors to say that I can't see it listed in a condition, or am I missing it? Sorry. Can we deal with that issue?
Yeah, so you are correct. There is no condition to restrict the roof terrace. So it's quite helpful in the summary of the objectors' comments and the officer's response to that. And it does kind of iterate that the previous consents also showed on the plans the same as these, kind of noting it as a roof terrace, but again without the railings and things. And no conditions have ever been imposed to restrict its use to date on those previous consents. So the officers concluded that it may be unreasonable for us to then go against that now, but obviously if members are minded to suggest such a condition, that could be something that could be imposed.
Councillor North, you're nodding. Would you like to propose that as a condition?
Yes, just with the height question as well, at the height. But yes, is the answer, sorry.
So we'll come back to it, but on the roof terrace, you're saying you would like to propose...
yes, please.
Okay, so then the next question, which either you want to ask or I want to ask, is to do with the exact size and the height and the discrepancies. Can we, if they are doing it to they wish to do it to the exact size, which they state, why is it not to the exact size? And can we condition it to be to the exact size?
So the officer has also addressed this in the objectors' comments, and they have confirmed that there is no increase in size. The drawings do line up, the proposed and the demolition drawings. So there is a condition for compliance with the approved drawings, so the applicant would need to comply with that condition. So I believe that it's already suitably kind of covered.
So why have we got some slight discrepancy as to what the objectors to believe about the size and the applicant about the size? Can you throw any light on that?
I don't believe I can. I can just go with what's before officers as part of this and what's before members as part of this application, and it has been assessed that there isn't any difference between the demolition drawings and the proposed drawings. If it's helpful, I can bring them back up on screen.
Yes, please, yeah, that would help.
Okay, so this is the proposed elevation. So you can see I'm kind of looking at it in the way that it lines up with this sill here and comes across, and then down, and then again here where it comes across. And then you can see in the demolition drawings, it is in the same place. So I can flick again. And the officer has kind of checked this and reiterated it in their comments that there is no proposal to increase the height or width of the outrigger, and it does seem that the two different drawing sets do match up.
There appear to be some discrepancies here. I know what you're saying. Can we put a condition in? Can we put anything in anywhere that strengthens that it has to be to the size of the demolished building? Because clearly there's some either misunderstanding of the drawings or misunderstanding.
Yeah, so I wouldn't advise that a condition was appended to kind of, I don't know if we could suitably word that to meet the tests of what a condition needs to be. I think with the compliance to the approved drawings, we've got the proposed plans, and if the outrigger or any part of the development wasn't built out in accordance with that, we could enforce reasonably against that. So I think members need to make a decision on the plans that are in front of them. And
just to help me, could you just flip
the
slides once again? I'm looking at the demolition and the proposed.
So the proposed, the demolition. It's probably not helpful that I've not put them to the exact same size on the screen. They are on the back of your pack as well, if you wanted to look at them in detail.
Okay, and I think the issue here is that we've got an application in front of us, and we have to determine that application, and we have to ensure that the applicant build to the specification in this application. And the applicant is saying that the specifications are there's no increase in height, and they are to the dimensions of the building, of the old building. So I think there's nothing more really we can reasonably do on that. Can we come back now to the roof terrace? Councillor North, do you want to propose a condition, please? So this is going to be a new condition. Okay, Councillor North.
Yes, so if we could put a condition to say it can't be used as a roof terrace. Very simple.
Yeah, we have a standard wording for that, so we can just use that condition.
Would anybody like to second that, please? Councillor Mackover. All in favour, please raise your hands. All agreed. So we now then need to come to the recommendation in Para 1.1. It is recommended the committee grant planning permission with the conditions listed in section 8 plus the additional condition on the roof terrace that we have just made. Would all those in favour please raise their hands? Anybody against? Any abstentions? That is granted unanimously. Thank you very much indeed. Can we now please move to 8 Berkeley Square, Berkeley Gardens. I'm getting all my Smith Streets and Gardens and everything. 8 Berkeley Gardens, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So the application before you this evening is, in short, an amalgamation of the property. So there's 2 homes on the site at the moment that it's proposing to convert into one. So turning to the application drawings, you'll see from the planning history that lots of alterations have already been allowed to the property. So changes to the fenestration, some infills, some roof works that are already, as far as I understand, underway on site. So they don't form part of the application. And then just turning to the floor plans, there's an existing lower ground floor with a well-sized unit on that floor level, and then on the floor plans above, an existing family-sized home. So officers have considered the application before us, and in line with section 38 of the relevant act, have made a determination in accordance with our development plan, which is the local plan and the London plan included. There are no other material considerations, in our opinion, before us that would justify a departure from policy, and as such we are recommending refusal for the reasons outlined in the pack. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. We do have a speaker from the as agent for the applicant, Ms. Kate Matthews. Yes, you have 3 minutes, please.
Thank you. My name's Kate Matthews and I'm the agent for the application. Firstly, the family would like to apologise for not being here this evening. They're away, and by the time they found out that the item would not make it to the 12th of March committee, it was too late for them to be here. I'm therefore here to represent them. The proposals for 8 Berkeley Gardens provide an opportunity to provide a much-needed larger family house, sustainably located within Kensington. The proposals seek the amalgamation of the lower ground floor flat and the existing upper flat into form a 5-bedroom home. The larger family home is sought by the applicant and their family to provide sufficient space for 5 persons, including the 3 adults, the child and the live-in nanny, and they will enable them to create their dream home. The proposals will allow the family to make use of all the amenity space, about half of which is currently dedicated to the 1-bedroom flat. It will not result in fewer people living in the building overall, but will allow integration of the spaces, making family life easier. The need for housing in the borough is understood, but this should be weighed up against the need for larger family homes. 8 Berkeley Gardens was originally built as one house, and returning it to this will benefit a mix of housing in the area, as well as allowing this family to realise their vision. That's it.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Mackover.
Just want to understand, has the family, you say they're living in both at the moment, has the family owned the property together for some time?
They are currently actually doing some alterations to the property, so they're not living there. I think they bought it as their kind of dream family home and perhaps didn't realise the policy requirements, but they own the whole property and were keen to pursue what they wanted as their dream family home.
But they do own both properties?
That's
Thank you.
And just help me on, so I would ask them, but obviously they're not here. And did they buy both together from the same owner previously?
As far as I'm aware, that's correct.
Any more questions? Councillor North?
Just a quickie to follow on from Councillor Mackover, really. I'm sure we're sympathetic to the aims of the applicant, but you're saying that they bought the properties without knowing that they couldn't, that there was a policy not to remove dwelling numbers in the borough?
Yes, unfortunately, I think that is the case.
Sorry. Yeah, so could you just repeat, I think I missed it, how many people are living there, and you said there wouldn't be a change in the number, so they're not expecting any more children or anything? There's no sort of reason for them to
I mean, not currently,
Okay.
but their child is quite young, and there may be more in the future. I think there's 5 of them at the moment.
So, sorry, there's 5, and have they ever lived in the single
Yes,
apartment?
they live together at the moment, yes.
But have they ever lived in one of those individual apartments?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Just confirm, this was originally designed as a single house. It, over time, has been split into 2.
Yes, that is correct, although that was some time ago, I think.
Any more questions to the Speaker? Any questions for officers, please?
I just have one more question. So, as it currently stands, they wouldn't be able to fit into one of those apartments?
I think they would struggle to do that on the, well, what they would like, to, I suppose, to have the kind of live-in nanny, which they wouldn't be able to do, whether they could squeeze without her, possibly.
In fairness, I don't think that is a relevant planning issue because they could sell it on and et cetera, but it's an interesting thought, thank you. Any other questions? Let's move then to questions to the officers. Who would like to ask a question to the officers? Councillor North.
Thank you. Yes, I'm very familiar with this road, and it is a road of very handsome Victorian houses. Can you just confirm that this was originally one house?
Historically, when it was built, there would have been the servants' quarters on the bottom and one house, I would assume, but I've got no kind of evidence to support that, but that's what most of the stock is, yeah.
Thank you.
Any more questions for officers? Okay, then we need to move to a vote. Para 1.2, it is recommended that the committee refuse planning permission for the following reasons: loss of homes under optimisation of the site. So when you're voting now, you're voting in favour of refusal. Would those in favour of the recommendation to refuse please raise their hands? Would those against the recommendation to refuse please raise their hands? Any abstentions? One abstention. So help me on the word. So that refusal is not granted, and therefore the application is granted.
So, I mean, in coming to that conclusion, you'll need to be clear why you are granting planning permission, what your reasons are for that. Right. Given the shortcomings we've identified in the report with regards to the policy and the direction of travel with the new local plan. And then if there's any specific conditions that you may want, but we can come to that bit afterwards.
Okay. So, who would like to suggest why we have not granted refusal? Councillor Mackover.
Yes, it's an unusual situation in that it was bought. We've heard it was bought in the same transaction at the same time and is being occupied by the same family, and even though it's, we don't get a lot of cases exactly like this. I'm also hearing, I don't know whether Councillor North will add it, that it's sort of a characteristic of that particular road, which I was just going on what he was saying. Maybe you want to add whether it's a very suitable property for recombining. But to me, it was it would seem that the current occupation and the current ownership is in one is in one unit. It's not like it's a site being assembled.
If I may, Chairman, just on that point, I'm trying to think how to word it. To put it bluntly, there's no proof or evidence that they've owned it together at the same time, bought it at the same time, and didn't know that they couldn't amalgamate. I would perhaps encourage you to focus on the second reason, which is that actually restoring this property to a single family home would enhance the conservation area, which is predominantly made up of single-family dwellings, and therefore would improve the character and so on. Something along those lines, I would yeah.
I'm very happy to propose that. As I say, I'm very familiar with this road, and I'm sure most of, if not all of the others, are in their original format of being handsome Victorian homes with servants' quarters possibly in the roof or in the basement in some cases.
So, if we go for the restoring it to its original single home, are you happy with that as a and part of the conservation area for a reason for not refusing this?
Yeah, fine.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Conditions, if you want me to suggest some.
You did mention conditions. Are there any that you'd like to suggest, please?
I mean, do chip in, Fiona, but I was just going to go with the time limit, which is a standard 3 years to start, compliance with approved drawings, and then I don't think there's anything else to... Do you need section 106? I don't think you need permit free because at the moment they both benefit from it and they go into one. So I would suggest it's just the two conditions there.
Just so you as it was recommended to refuse it with no conditions, so now we have granted it, in effect, we need to add the standard conditions. And those are, just repeat the two again.
Time limit, so to start works within
Yep.
3 years, and then compliance with approved drawings, which is the drawings.
Do you need anybody to propose those?
No, because you've already,
Yeah,
you've already done
okay.
the vote.
Fine, okay, so that is where we are on that one. We now move on to Fawcett Street. 12 to 18 Fawcett Street. Who is going to present this, please? Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. That would be me. So before members this evening is an application for the erection of a mansard roof across all terrace houses, along with the reinstatement of a front main cornice. So the application site relates to all 4 properties within this terrace group. This is a helpful plan to think about the conservation area appraisal. So the application site is within the conservation area, the Bolton's conservation area. And part of that conservation area appraisal seeks to preserve historic parapet and butterfly roofs. So this terrace benefits from a historic roof plan that's been unaltered. And that is also quite consistent within the immediate area of the site. As you can see, all those highlighted in this kind of like lighter blue shade have this historic parapet and butterfly roof arrangement. So a key aim of the conservation area appraisal is to preserve that key kind of aspect of the conservation area. So the proposal here, you can see the existing and proposed front elevation. So you can see there is party walls. So the terrace would actually be slightly unbalanced due to the kind of arrangement of the number 12 Fawcett Street, where this has kind of an extended roof to the rear. So it would then result in this kind of hipped end to the mansard, whereas there would be kind of a gable wall on the other end at number 18. And then you can see this again in the rear elevation, so it's slightly different on the end where 12 is. And then again from the side elevation, mainly focusing on number 12. And then this is the roof plan, which also shows the solar panels that are sought for permission as well. So this is a rendered kind of artist impression of what those mansard roof extensions would look like, and the instatement of some chimneys along the terrace group. And then this is the existing view towards the south of Fawcett Street, and the existing view from Oakfield Street towards Fawcett Street. So the proposed mansard extensions would extend the existing residential properties, and the proposal would result in harm to the conservation area, and as such the proposal is recommended for approval. There would be limited public benefits associated with the development and the scheme, and therefore it would not be outweighed by any public benefits associated with the scheme and would not comply with the NPPF or conservation area policies. In addition to this, a similar application was previously refused by the local planning authority and dismissed at appeal. So the site history holds material weight in the determination of the application. And whilst the development plan has changed since this earlier application, the aims of the policies remain the same, seeking to preserve or enhance buildings within the conservation area and resist unsympathetic roof additions. Therefore, the proposed development will fail to comply with the relevant policies within the development plan. And again, the recommendation is to refuse. So members may be aware that there is a pending local development order, design guide, for the properties nearby at Redcliffe Road. And the applicant has referred to this within their supporting statements. At this stage, the development order holds no weight in the termination of this application, and the local development order is currently out for consultation and is materially different to this application, both in terms of location and design. So it's also worth noting that the applicant has declined to potentially enter into a legal agreement which would ensure that the mansards were built at the same time. The NPPF only requires this where there is exceptional justification, and officers are of the opinion that there is exceptional justification and therefore in the absence of the legal agreement or appropriate mechanisms to secure the scheme being built out as a whole, this would also form a recommended reason for refusal on the basis that this could be approved and then just one implemented and none of the other ones implemented, resulting in that kind of unbalanced mansard roof extension that the conservation area appraisal and policies are seeking to prevent. So again, the officer's recommendation is to refuse permission on those grounds outlined in the officer's report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, we got there. Thank you very much. Okay, we have some speakers from the applicant's side, and including a ward councillor. So we've got Councillor Bennett and Julian Williams. Councillor Bennett, are you going to speak first? You have 2 minutes for... You'll speak second, okay. Sorry, I thought you were saying 2 minutes. Mr. Williams, do you want to start then? You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Julian Williams, the Director of BB Partnership, the architect of the proposed scheme. The scheme is for the addition of a mansard roof extension to numbers 12 to 18 Fawcett Street. The 4 properties constitute a complete terrace and none of the properties have mansard extensions. As noted in the officer's report, policy CL8 and the emerging policy CD11 are to resist additional stories and roof alterations on complete terraces, even where the proposal involves adding the whole terrace as a group of coordinated design. However, prior to considering this policy, I think it is relevant to outline the approach that we have taken to the design in order to demonstrate that the proposal preserves and enhances a conservation area, so that the singular point of debate is the policy relating to the previously undeveloped terraces. As mentioned, the design of the proposed mansard extensions has been prepared to follow the recently published Redcliffe Road Local Development Order Design Guide prepared by the RBKC Conservation Team, which, if approved, will allow mansard additions to 12, 21 to 32 Redcliffe Road, also in the Bolton's conservation area. The existing houses at 12 to 18 Fawcett Street are very similar to those on Redcliffe Road. All properties have exceptionally high front parapet walls that, as identified in the design guide, will partially conceal the mansard additions. We did also supply some CGIs of the proposed mansards, which are in the application pack but not displayed tonight. The details of the proposed mansards, along with the materials to be used, including natural slate, lead roofs, painted timber sash windows, will all follow the criteria detailed in the design guide. In addition, to ensure the new mansards will help to reduce carbon emissions, the new mansards will include photovoltaic panels. The proposals also include the reinstatement of the missing external cornice details to number 12 to 18 that will match the adjoining properties at 14 and 16, and also all the other similar houses in the street. The only properties with the cornice detail missing are 12 and 18. One thing I've just noticed is of the only three of the eight properties opposite the run of 12 to 18 haven't had mansards. The conservation area appraisal document that was just put on screen is materially incorrect in that respect. Any view on Google Earth or our submission demonstrates that the properties opposite only three of them don't have mansards. The officer's report does confirm that the proposed development would not have any detrimental effects on the amenity of the neighbouring properties in terms of daylight, sunlight, privacy or outlook. Given the approach used for design, I think it is reasonable to conclude that if the proposals related to properties on a terrace that included other mansards, then the design would be considered to be acceptable and that planning approval could be granted. Therefore, the real question relates to the policies restricting the development of previously undeveloped terraces. The recently revised MPPF states that planning policy decisions should allow for upward extensions where the development would be consistent with the prevailing height and form to
bring you to a close, sir,
of the neighbouring properties and the overall street scene, which, as I've just mentioned, the significant majority of the properties opposite already have mansards, hence the prevailing character. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bennett, 2 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chairman. We all know that in this borough we are desperately short of family-sized properties, and I'm sure you'll agree it's incumbent on us to find opportunities to create more family-sized homes whilst also protecting our beautiful buildings and conservation areas. And that's what this proposal does: add much-needed living space while respecting the conservation area. There are 3 points which I think underline just how sensitive the design of these mansards is. Firstly, the basis of the design is, as mentioned, taken from the excellent work done by our own conservation officers for the Redcliffe Road LDO, an architecturally similar street in the same conservation area. This design is not only attractive and in keeping, it's also set back to the extent it's of very limited visibility from the street. Secondly, there are 0 objections to this proposal. And you can be in no doubt that the Boltons Association, whose primary purpose is protecting this conservation area, would not hesitate to object if they believed it was harmful. And the same is true for the local councillors, including myself. Thirdly, the application actually improves elements of the architecture. In particular, it extends the decorative cornicing of the middle 2 properties out to the end properties, uniting the 4 of them, and uniting the street, really. So I think it's fair to say that this application achieves the goal of creating family-sized homes while preserving the conservation area. Let me now quickly address the final point, that the 4 properties are unable to sign a legal agreement obliging them to build all 4 mansards simultaneously. I completely agree that in an ideal world this would be desirable. Unfortunately, we don't live in an ideal world, and the differing circumstances of the applicants mean they're unable to make this commitment. It's just too risky for neighbour 1 to build a mansard, knowing that if one of the other neighbours can't build the mansard within the time period for whatever reason, then he may have to knock it down. However, I don't think this fact of life is sufficient reason to turn down the application. Where mansards look bad is where you have a bad design or multiple different designs next to each other. What you are establishing here tonight, if you grant permission, is a common and appropriate design which will, sooner or later, be fully built out and in the meantime will not have any negative impact on the conservation area.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we now have an opportunity to ask questions of the speakers. Any questions, please? Okay, questions for the officers, please. Councillor Mackover.
Yes, I went to have a look just to make sure whether the pictures were accurate, and I see that they are, and I'm agreeing that it's suitable in the area and also would be an improvement for the terrace itself if these are all completed. And so question to officers is there, if these were done in the same way and to the same style, would this eventually become a positive factor for the conservation area from a public viewpoint?
Yeah, that's a question for officers. Yeah.
Questions to officers. Yeah, okay. So I think if these were all built out at the same time, that would be a material consideration, and that there wouldn't be an unbalancing of the terrace, and it would look more comprehensive in terms of the impact of the conservation area. However, if they were piecemeally installed, then that would lead to kind of an unbalanced and unfinished view of the terrace, and that would go against kind of the advice of the conservation area appraisal and would likely result in harm to the conservation area.
Could you just put the slide, the picture of surrounding buildings, and just looking at that picture, there did seem to be a number of buildings with mansards in that conservation area.
Yep, I'll just bring that up for you. Yep, so you can see there are some mansards on the properties to the front of the terrace, but what you can't see in this picture is all of the untouched roofs that are actually to the rear of this, which are all the kind of, the terrace properties look very similar. So they all have this kind of same facade and butterfly roof arrangement, which is what is picked up in the conservation area appraisal as very kind of characterful of the area. And again, this site has had an upheld appeal on it, and the inspector did dismiss the grounds for the complete terrace mansard roof extension. So I would implore members to
be more specific on the what was it about that
Yeah.
they didn't like?
So the appeal decision is in members' packs. So the appeal was dismissed, and the main issue in this appeal are the effect of the proposed development on the character and appearance of the terrace and locality, including the Bolton's conservation area, which the site lays in. So the inspector found that there was harm to the conservation area and dismissed the appeal on those grounds.
Okay, any other questions, please? Okay, we come now then to make a decision, and remember this is a refusal. So if we look at para 1.4, excuse me, it is recommended the committee refuse planning permission with the reasons for refusal listed in section 9 of this report. All those in favour of refusal, please raise your hands. All those against refusal, and we need to come up with a reason before Lisa tells me. Those against refusal, please raise their hands. And what would anybody like to offer a reason? Councillor McOver, you're not very good at the side.
Over time, if permission was granted, if consent was granted for this, then there would be an incentive, I think, for people to complete an identical and coordinated design. And so whether 1 or 2 or 3 got done in a certain amount of time and fourth in another amount of time, it would become the most consistent. And looking at it now, to me, it looks harmful that that there are pieces of decorative stonework that are missing from the vast bulk of the terrace, and therefore it's already compromised, and therefore in time and with a consent in place, there would be a public good as well as the private benefit of increased accommodation and also a better looking terrace, which will be consistent with others built in the area as well.
So you're saying an increase in accommodation size, and you believe it would contribute to the character of the conservation area?
Positive impact.
Positive impact. Are those in? Thank you. I think we've got that. So with those reasons, that is granted.
Again, sorry, just to talk about conditions.
Okay, 2 minutes, just 2 minutes. We need to add some conditions
Yeah.
to this, as we've got. So just the standard conditions.
Yes, so off the top of my head would be time limit, compliance with approved drawings, materials to match, and Jessica?
Yeah, just on the time limit fact, once one's implemented, that means that the whole thing can go ahead, just to clarify.
Yeah, so essentially, I mean, you're under-implementing the permission by one doing it, and it keeps it live for however long the others want to do it, which, is no bad thing, if they all want to do it at some point. So yes, materials to match. I mean, we have standard conditions regarding dormer roof detailing, lead, use of things like that. So if you're happy to delegate that to officers to refine and agree with the applicant, then we'll do that on pre-commencement, and also the Code of Construction. And I don't know if there's anything else that you might want to think about construction-wise, but I'll ask the question.
I think if you do the Code of Construction, that covers the essentials, doesn't it? Yep. Okay, so with those conditions, that is fine. I'm going to suggest that that's the end of the application with speakers. I'm going to suggest we take a 2-minute natural break and then come back and hear the other applications. Thank you. Okay, welcome back. And just for the record, Councillor Thaxter is not feeling well and has excused herself, but that's fine because we're still quorate as a committee. So let's now move on to the application number 10 on the agenda, land to the rear of 402 to 406 Kings Road. Who's going to present this for us?
Thank you,
Yes,
Chair.
thank
That
you.
would be me. So before members this evening are the details required by Condition 4, which relates to trees and landscaping of the previously approved permission for the erection of a single-storey plus basement 2-bedroom dwelling with associated landscaping. This is an existing site plan showing the kind of backland development site and the existing passage to the site. And then this is the proposed landscaping plan showing areas of green roof and some areas of planting along the passageway and to the boundary wall. This is a section showing proposed elevation of the walls and landscaping. And again, the raised planter also containing some planting on the west elevation. So that concludes my presentation, but officers are recommending approval or discharge of the condition, and the Council's arboricultural officer has reviewed the information provided and has confirmed that landscaping proposals would be acceptable. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions for the officers? In that case, no. In that case, then we need to go to a vote. Paragraph 1.3. It is recommended the committee approve the details required by condition 14 of the planning permission PP/21/05681. All those in favour, please raise their hands. Anybody against? That is granted. Can we then move to ground floor Portobello Road, 173 Portobello Road, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Just one short verbal update, which is in paragraph 6.10 of our report. We talk about how they've submitted details of the roof lights to limit light spill. We've accidentally left on the condition that from the previous one onto that, so we would just like to edit that condition to make it a compliance with that detail submitted rather than ask for further details, because they've done it as part of this application. So it's just that one verbal update, but nothing further to add to the report, and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Any questions on the report, please? So we then go to a vote on that report, and it is recommended the committee grant planning permission with the conditions listed in section 9 of that report, plus the change that you've just outlined there. Would those in favour please raise their hands? Anybody against? Any abstentions? That is granted. Thank you. We now move to 48 Seymour Walk. Who's going to present that, please?
Thank you, Chair. That's me. So this application is for the discharge of details required by Condition 4 relating to a construction traffic management plan. The construction traffic management plan is considered acceptable and has been reviewed by highways officers. No objections were received for this application. However, it's before members, as when the parent permission was granted, members requested the CTMP come back to be considered by committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions on the CTMP? In that case, then we need to move to a vote. Para 1.1, it is recommended the committee approve the details of the condition 4 of the planning PP 23033136. Would all those in favour please raise their hand? Anybody against? Any abstentions? That is granted. Thank you. Can we go then, please, to Westbourne Grove?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Again, another details condition for a construction traffic management plan. I have nothing further to add to the report, but happy to answer questions again.
Thank you. Any questions? Are we happy with the CTMP? In that case, then, can we go to a vote? Para 1.2, recommended the committee approve the matters reserved by conditions 4 attached to the planning permission, reference PP/22/00916, dated the 9th of September 2023. Would those in favour please raise their hands? Anybody against? Any abstentions? That is granted. Thank you. We then move to Camden Grove.
That was again with me. Thank you, Chairman. Before members this evening, as it's Councillor Siren's application, I have nothing further to add to the report, but happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Any questions of the officers or comments on the CTMP? Okay, we move to a vote. Para 1.2, recommending the committee approves the matters reserved by Condition 4 attached to the planning permission reference PP/22/00916 dated the 9th of September 2023. Would all those in favour please raise their hand? Anybody against? Any abstentions? That is granted. And the final application for this evening, no, we've two more to go on with. Camden Grove. Please, Camden Grove, our penultimate application. That's the one we've just done, yeah, so we now move on to Little Boltons.
Thank you, Chair. That's with me. So the application before members is for the construction of a replacement rear extension at upper ground floor level to number 15, which is part of the amalgamated pair. The proposed extension would preserve the character and appearance of the individual buildings in the surrounding area, and officers have raised no concerns in regard to living conditions. And the application is recommended for approval subject to the conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions for officers on this one? In that case, then, we go to a vote on this application of Little Boltons. Para 1.2, recommend the committee grant planning permission with the conditions listed in section 9 of this report. Would all those in favour please raise their hand? Anybody against? Any abstentions? That is granted. And that concludes the applications for this evening's meeting, and that concludes the meetings. Thank you to everybody, and happy Easter weekend. Thank you.